Today, I'm sharing insights from a book published in late December 2023, Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal. Its subtitle is How to Do More of What Matters to You. Let's start with a story. The protagonist of this story is a typical good student. He's very disciplined, hardworking, and perseverant. These traits helped him get into a prestigious global medical school. The competition was fiercer there, and the coursework was more challenging. Whenever he faced difficulties, his solution was often the same: work harder and endure more. After becoming a doctor, he worked tirelessly daily, but there were always more patients to see and more paperwork to complete. Initially, he coped the same way he always had, putting in more effort and more time. However, he found this strategy no longer worked. Even though he reduced his sleep to the minimum, stopped spending time with family and friends, and put all his heart into his work, he still couldn't finish his work. His mood also worsened, and he felt like he was suffocating. So he began to reflect on whether his approach over the past decade or so was correct. Does success truly require suffering like this? Must I sacrifice my health and happiness to achieve success? The dilemma faced by this doctor is one that many people experience. They might have been the typical good student, believing that only those who endure the hardest hardships can rise above others. But after starting their careers, they find that no matter how much they endure, the strategy doesn't seem to work anymore. The protagonist of the story I just shared is also the author of today's book. His name is Ali Abdaal. We'll just call him Ali. He holds an MD from the University of Cambridge and later practiced as a doctor in London. He got caught up in the challenges of the medical profession, a productivity dilemma, where he felt that no matter how hard he worked and suffered, his productivity wasn't at a satisfactory level. So he took a year off to earn a degree in psychology, studying how to enhance personal productivity. Due to his background in both medicine and psychology and his willingness to use himself as a pilot to test his ideas, he developed an effective methodology and began sharing his findings online. He is now a popular YouTuber with over 3.4 million followers, focusing on productivity, learning, and personal management. In short, his content revolves around improving personal productivity, earning him the nickname the Productivity Scientist. His book became an Amazon bestseller in the business category even before its release, with many people pre-ordering it. So, what did Ali discover after much study, research, and practice? He found that his previous beliefs about success were wrong. Working harder won't make us happier, and there's an alternative path to achievement that doesn't involve chronic anxiety and insomnia. This path prioritizes our happiness and uses it to drive our productivity. Ali calls this approach feel-good productivity, which we can also say happy productivity. There's a key phrase in the book: it's not success that will make you feel good, but feeling good that will make you successful. This phrase addresses a common psychological misconception. Many people believe that it's okay to suffer now because once they overcome this hurdle or achieve something significant, they will be happy. However, this mindset has no end. Once you get through one challenge, there's always another one, and once you achieve something, you'll want to achieve more. This means that one can spend a lifetime in a state of forcing oneself to suffer. Moreover, this isn't a state that will help you achieve your goals faster. Instead, it will slow you down. There's ample medical and psychological research that shows people are most productive when they are happy and enthusiastic. Or, as the book says, when you feel good. This is primarily because our positive emotions are closely tied to four hormones: endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. These four hormones can be collectively referred to as feel-good hormones. They make us feel calm and happy, but also significantly enhance our productivity. For instance, higher endorphin levels can give us a sense of vitality, while dopamine provides a sense of satisfaction, allowing us to focus for longer periods. These two directly improve productivity, while the other two indirectly do so. For example, serotonin regulates our mood, sleep, and appetite, helping us physiologically have more energy to work. Oxytocin, also known as the love hormone, is closely linked to building relationships and improving our efficiency in collaborating with others. The book also mentions another interesting study showing that these feel-good hormones can counteract those produced by negative emotions. When experiencing negative emotions, the body releases adrenaline and cortisol, which are stress hormones. If these stress hormones are repeatedly and frequently activated in our bodies, we become anxious and less productive, and our health can suffer, increasing the risk of heart disease and high blood pressure. However, researchers found that feel-good hormones can reset our nervous system, returning us to a comfortable state and neutralizing the negative effects of stress hormones. For instance, in a study where people were told they had 1 minute to prepare a public speech and would be evaluated by others, their stress level skyrocketed and their heart rates and blood pressure rose. After the speeches, researchers had some participants watch sad movies, some watch positive ones, and some watch neutral ones. They found that those who watched movies that elicited positive emotions had the fastest recovery in heart rate and blood pressure. In summary, feel-good hormones can directly enhance productivity and offset the negative impact of stress hormones on our efficiency. So let's go back to the phrase we started with. It's not success that will make you feel good, but feeling good that will make you successful. A group of psychologists studied the relationship between happiness and success across 225 research papers involving over 270,000 people. Their findings confirmed this statement. When people reach their ideal goals, the positive emotions they experience don't significantly increase. However, those who generally feel good are more efficient, have better relationships, and earn higher salaries. People around them also rate them more highly. Of course, these findings aren't too surprising. We know that we are more efficient when we feel better. The value of this book is that it reminds us of something. Don't treat feeling good as a random occurrence and passively wait for the right moment. Instead, consider feeling good as a tool to be actively used and consciously create this state of well-being at work. Based on this core idea, Ali provides many practical methods. After he shared them on YouTube, many people wrote to him saying they also found them effective. High school students improved their grades, business owners doubled their income, people in career burnout regained their energy, and parents could better balance work and family. Okay, enough talk. Let's get into the methods. The first method is to treat work as a role-playing game. Think back to when we were kids. Why were we happier then than we are now? One important reason is that we viewed everything in the world with curiosity. Whether it was a tree in our hometown or a supermarket full of goods, everything could be our playground. Kids' everyday lives felt like an adventure game. Psychologists have found that this sense of adventure is crucial to triggering happiness. However, as we grow up and become accustomed to our surroundings, this sense of adventure gradually gets squeezed out of our daily lives. For many adults, the sense of adventure is more commonly found in the gaming world. After a monotonous day at work, many people like to dive into games to experience those new adventures. There was a period when Ali was addicted to a game, spending an average of 3 hours a day on it. He would fly around the world, fight monsters, upgrade weapons, and complete tasks with other players. He then started pondering why he was so addicted to this game. The sense of adventure was certainly a significant reason, but more importantly, it was a world where he could assume a role. In real life, Ali was a somewhat bookish student. But in the game, he wasn't adventuring with this identity. He played a role very different from his real self, a tall, handsome elf in a flowing purple robe commanding a demon army. He played this role. Acting in this role made everything more interesting, more like an adventure. Even if the task was just rescuing a cat or solving a math problem, it was more fun than doing it in the real world. So, how do we bring this sense of adventure to our work? One important method is to inject a sense of adventure. But artificially creating adventures isn't easy. A better approach is to choose a game character for yourself and bring this character to work. For example, a collector character searches for rare treasures and collects gems unnoticed by others. A conductor character commands and leads people into battle. An explorer character likes to roam around and discover new places and things. A storyteller character has an active imagination and uses it to inspire others or bring them joy. These characters can be translated into real life without much explanation. Your mind probably already has an image. The book provides 8 game personalities. Besides the 4 mentioned, there are also mover, creator, competitor, and joker. These 8 game personalities were proposed by clinical psychologist Dr. Stuart Brown, whose primary research area is game psychology. He found that role-playing in real life could significantly improve one's mental state. He also discovered that most people tend to role-play only 1 or 2 specific types of characters, which is more than enough. So, Dr. Brown's advice is that to make work and life full of interesting adventures, we can first identify the role that resonates most with us, and then try to handle work or life tasks like this character. For example, a creator facing a dull data set might proactively think about presenting it more creatively and beautifully. A storyteller preparing to present a long report could ask if they can turn it into a more engaging story. Of course, the character you choose isn't limited to these 8 game personalities. You can define characters that align better with your work. Many content creators are like people dancing with shackles. There's a framework, but also fluidity. Perhaps this is his sense of character. When I write, I often imagine myself as a gymnast, which is similar. Gymnastics has general guidelines and encourages athletes to challenge difficult moves and use their creativity. So, when writing, every time I finish a section, I feel like I've completed a challenging move and move on to the next. When an article passes review, the image in my mind is that of a gymnast performing multiple flips in the air and landing steadily. This sense of character truly adds a touch of magic to mundane daily life. The next method is, what would it look like if it were fun? Ali has a sticky note on his desk with this phrase to remind himself to inject some fun into work whenever it feels dull. The simplest way is to improve the external environment. For example, light a pleasant incense, place beautiful plants, or, as Ali often does, play some atmospheric or energetic music. When the background music starts, he feels like a movie protagonist embarking on a journey. The work itself can also be modified. No matter how mundane a task appears, you can find joy in it by incorporating a bit of creative thinking. The book tells the story of Matthew Dix, who is now a best-selling novelist. Before publishing his first book, he worked at McDonald's. It was a passionless, monotonous, and unchallenging job where he repeated the same routines of taking orders, flipping burgers, and serving fries. Dix wondered if he could add some fun to this job. So, he started setting himself a creative challenge each day. For instance, one day, he decided it would be barbecue sauce day. He spent the rest of the day trying to persuade every customer he served to try the barbecue sauce. The fun was in the fact that each customer had a different level of persuasion difficulty, so he had to constantly refine his pitch and think about what to say next. Dix said that these small changes made him feel more energetic. He even started looking forward to his shifts, eager to see how many people he could persuade to try the barbecue sauce, or how well he could complete a new challenge. This is about finding joy in a mundane environment. When it feels like you're stirring a pot of plain porridge, remember to add a spoonful of creative thinking, and maybe the porridge will suddenly become flavorful. The next method to improve productivity while staying happy is to be your own hype squad. This method focuses on the concept of self-efficacy, a term coined by renowned psychologist Albert Bandura that refers to our level of confidence in a particular skill. Bandura's significant contribution was discovering that self-efficacy could improve our happiness and skills. In the half-century since Bandura introduced the concept, hundreds of studies have confirmed that the higher our confidence in a particular skill, the better that skill becomes. In other words, believing that you can do something is the first step to ensuring you can. Bandura further discovered that self-efficacy is malleable. It's not innate, but something we can cultivate. His findings were made over 40 years ago. Since then, people have begun recognizing the power of positive behavioral interventions. For instance, encouragement-based parenting has become popular, advocating for using encouragement to shape children's behavior and enhance their abilities. The underlying theoretical basis is one of Bandura's research conclusions. What a person hears often becomes what they believe. So, saying things like, "You can do it," or "You will definitely make it," can significantly boost a person's self-efficacy. These words can come from others or yourself. This means you can encourage yourself in the absence of others, which is the basic function of being your own hype squad. However, this is just the foundational role of a hype squad. It has another function: to activate your confidence switch. The idea is that next time you feel insecure and hesitant to take a risk, your internal hype squad should step in and ask, "If you were truly confident about this, what would it look like?" This phrase reminds you to actively play the role of a confident person. Ali says that when he was in college, he worked part-time as a magician. His job was to wear a tailcoat and approach people at banquets to perform magic tricks. Although he had mastered his tricks, the thought of interrupting strangers' conversations and performing magic in front of them made him nervous and insecure. Whenever this happened, he would take a deep breath, flip his confidence switch, and tell himself, "I'm just pretending to be a confident magician. Even if I'm not confident inside, I can still pretend to be confident and capable." This approach worked. When he pretended to be confident, he would stand tall. He could confidently walk up to a group of people and smoothly perform his magic. He has since seen the effects of this approach many times, not just on himself but on many others. In a split second, it can turn a timid person into a charismatic one. This is real magic, the magic inherent in human nature. The hype squad's function doesn't end here. It also needs to find examples of others' success for you to see. Research shows that if someone faces a challenging task, their chances of success significantly improve if they first see someone else complete the task rather than start immediately. For instance, researchers asked a group of students to climb a rock wall. The group was divided into two. One group first watched a video of others successfully climbing the wall, and the other did not. The results showed that the students who watched the video had more confidence in their climbing abilities and performed better. So when facing challenging tasks, one way to boost self-efficacy is to immerse yourself in a second-hand success by reading about or watching others' similar achievements. Ali applies this method to the extreme in his daily work. For instance, when he worked at a hospital, he listened to a medical podcast produced by the Royal College of Physicians during his commute to hear how doctors successfully tackled one challenge after another. When he first started as a YouTube creator, he spent much time listening to a podcast called Indie Hackers, which interviewed many people who successfully built online businesses alone. And during the process of writing this book, he found that reading, listening to, or interviewing successful authors boosted his sense of, I can do it, more than anything else. So, the Hype Squad's final function is to loudly tell you, if they can do it, so can you. Identify motivation. All right, we've talked about adventure, fun, and self-efficacy. Now let's focus on another key word, motivation. When discussing motivation, people often talk about external and internal motivation. External motivation is the classic carrot and stick. We do something to earn rewards or avoid punishment, which is driven by external motivation. It's not just material rewards. If someone says, I do this because I want people to like and respect me, they're also driven by external motivation. But in recent years, much research has suggested that external motivation isn't as effective as we think, while internal motivation is more effective. Internal motivation is when you do something simply because you love it and enjoy the process. Some scholars have found that this type of motivation is more lasting and powerful. However, in the work context, we find a problem. Most people can't sustain a passion for work. So, what should we do? This book tells us that besides external and internal motivation, there's another kind of motivation that can solve our problem. Let's look at a study mentioned in the book. Researchers recruited a group of people to go on a hiking trip. These people were initially very interested in hiking, which means they had strong internal motivation. However, the hike was going to last 5 months, and during these 5 months, their internal motivation steadily declined. Researchers observed this through subjective well-being tests. They also noticed something else. Some people managed to maintain a strong sense of well-being and high energy. This group was driven by another kind of motivation called identified motivation. Identified motivation means that I do this because I value this goal very much, it's important to me, and I really want to achieve it. So, this inspires us that even if I'm not particularly fond of the thing I'm doing, I can still consciously remind myself that I'm accomplishing something important to me. This can also give us strong motivation. It also reminds us that to maximize happiness and motivation in life, we must identify what truly matters and align our behavior with those priorities. So, how do we identify what truly matters to us? In our discussion of more wealth, more wisdom, more happiness, we mentioned the funeral exercise, where you imagine your ultimate scene. What do you want people to remember you for at your funeral? These are likely your most important priorities. The first version follows your current path. What will your life look like in 5 years? The second version is, if your current path were no longer available, what other path would you choose? What will your life look like in 5 years? The third version is, if you had total freedom in time and wealth, what path would you choose? What will your life look like in 5 years? In this way, these 3 5-year plans can help you discover what truly matters in your life. Focus on the present, not the distant future. We've talked about the funeral exercise and the Odyssey plan. We can see that the Odyssey plan has a closer perspective than the funeral exercise. However, 5 years is still a relatively long time. So, Ali recommends using the next method after finding what truly matters to you through the funeral exercise and the Odyssey plan, called the 12-month celebration. This is Ali's favorite way to turn dreams into action. The method is simple. Imagine that 12 months later, you're having dinner with your best friend. The dinner's theme is to celebrate the progress you've made in your life over the past year, and all of this progress has happened in the areas that matter most to you. For example, in health, I lost 10 pounds and eliminated fatty liver. In work, I found a new job that plays to my strengths. In family relationships, I communicate more with my family, and our relationships have deepened. Once you list these, what matters most to you no longer lies in the distant future, but becomes part of your steps over the coming months. But it doesn't end there because this time next year is still a bit far for the brain. Can we bring it even closer to today, even now? Ali's approach is to save the 12-month celebration document on his computer. Every day before starting work, he opens this document to remind himself of what he values most this year. Then, in each category, he picks a small task to move it forward today. For example, in health, it's exercising from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. In work, it's sending out 10 resumes to look for new opportunities. In family, it's calling his grandmother. Doing this ensures that throughout the year, we're always reminded to move toward what matters most to us. Additionally, this has another benefit closely related to our theme today. It's a way to improve productivity while staying happy. Psychologists have confirmed that focusing on short-term goals gives us more motivation and happiness than focusing on long-term goals. For example, in one study, researchers divided a group of children into two groups, each tasked with doing 42 pages of math problems. The first group was scheduled to do 6 pages a day for 7 days. The second group had 7 days to complete the 42 pages. One group focused on short-term goals, while the other's goal was longer-term. The researchers found that the children who focused on short-term goals performed significantly better. They solved 80% of the problems correctly, while the other group solved only 40%. More importantly, the children who focused on short-term goals felt more confident throughout the process. In other words, the short-term goal method can help improve our lives in both ability and feelings. All right, we've talked about motivation. First, we discussed the importance of identified motivation, which means that to maintain long-term motivation and happiness, we should first determine what matters most to us in life and arrange our behavior accordingly. To find what matters most, we need a long-term perspective. Here, we've talked about the funeral exercise and the Odyssey plan. Next, switch to a medium-term perspective and use the 12-month celebration method, which effectively brings lifelong or 5-year goals closer to 1 year. After that, implement the contents of the 12-month celebration into daily actions. This is a short-term perspective. At the start of each day, we can use this phrase to begin a day full of motivation. What 3 small actions can I take today to get closer to the life I want? Think like a productivity scientist. All right, that's the key content from this book that I want to share with you. Finally, I want to pass on Ali's advice, which is that everything we've discussed isn't a to-do list. You don't have to incorporate everything into your life. We should learn to think like a productivity scientist. What characterizes a scientist's way of thinking? They like to experiment, and they trust what experiments tell them. Ali shares methods that have worked for him, but whether they work for us also needs to be validated through experimentation. Productivity science is an ever-evolving field, and we are constantly evolving. So, Ali's advice is to experiment as much as possible, find what works, and discard the rest. This way, you can create a productivity toolbox that best suits you. All right, that's all for today's book. Congratulations on finishing another book.